You know, Cheryl and I have, have a very good relationship, and my suitcase has still not come. So she was the generous person who took me shopping, and we tried on Western clothes, and she said to me, "Why don't you try on these?" I happen to know she has little brothers. And I said, it must have been like dressing her little brothers. And she had such a delight in her face. I said, I have to wear these. But you know, I rather like them, except for the ongoing anxiety about losing my pants. I want to thank the Congress directors for having me. I hope I'm worthy to this task of representing, I should say, speaking for the adolescents. They really speak for themselves quite well. I would also like to comment that to all of you who are from India, we elementary and adolescent teachers owe India a tremendous debt. And this is because the whole of cosmic education began here. Because Maria Montessori, and we who are Westerners know quite well, even in our mind's eye, why India had such a powerful impact on Maria Montessori. But I also would like to say, being here has validated everything that I imagined. This is my first time. Everything that I imagined became the embodiment of the cosmic idea. So we owe you a great service. So, as an obedient person, I looked at the theme, Sadhana or Sadhana, and I studied it, and I picked out these phrases from the theme that I think pertain to my work with adolescents. Mind and body, of course, coming together to perform complex multi-level tasks. Well, you'll see this. Initially with awareness, but eventually lived. Lived means something. To live something is different than studying something or imitating something. And carried out without effort, mindful action, action which includes thinking about your actions, conscious practice within and without, a disciplined state of inner harmony. Now, as you can see, the title of this presentation is about harmony between the adolescent and the adult, and the embodiment of harmony. Now, what I mean by embodiment, I would like to turn your attention to the architecture that's here. If you look up and look around, and what I would really advise is you come stand on the stage, because there's a harmony between the indoors and the outdoors. There's a feeling in this auditorium. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels it, but there's an embodiment of a quality that has, I think, positive intent. So I would say that harmony is something that is embodied in every place we go if we look for it, and it is truly a part of Kalakshetra. Now, a traditionalist might ask this question, which is antithetical to harmony and really antithetical about the adolescent. It goes like this. By the way, I'll read from time to time. Most of it's my writing, but I don't want to go too fast, and I want, in case my American accent is difficult to understand, I would like you to be able to read along from time to time. But most of my presentation is media and pictures. What harmony exists between adolescents and adults? Does not the storm and stress of adolescence, their need to grow up, their relentless search for autonomy and independence, suggest the opposite conditions to harmony? Tension, opposition, rebellion, and even if human harmony can be embodied in the adult-adolescent relationship, What is meant by embodiment? How can a body that's filled with extreme emotions, hormonal reactions, rapid change, the torments of social acceptance and rejections, still embody human harmony? That's a traditional attitude. People felt very sorry almost 22 years ago when I started to work with adolescents. They said, you won't enjoy it, it won't be fun, but I can tell you it's been the most fun and the most love-producing kind of experience I've ever had. Let's take a closer look at the truth. This is what I want to do for you. I want to explore the Montessori adolescent unique relationship to the adult, a relationship shaped by a lifetime of developmentally appropriate encounters. That is, every encounter that comes before in a Montessori place through the prepared environment has an impact on the adolescent relationship with the adult. My hope is to shed light on the inevitable truth of a new adolescent adult way of being, which then reaches a point of arrival embodied by the new Montessori adult. I think I can show you in just 45 minutes. What do I mean by embodied learning, and why did I use this particular slide by Irv DeVore, who was chair of the Harvard Department of Anthropology. It's a San Bush mother and child doing work, thatching a roof. Now, what I see in this picture is a connection, a fundamental connection that's body to body, but also focused on work. And I see concentration, I see focus, I see intent, but most important, I see something's happening that is physical and that in effect will stay with both the mother and the child. Embodiment is, of course, the very essence of Montessori education, founded on the recognition that the child absorbs through the senses and then incarnates, that is, embodies everything in the environment. Our appreciation of this embodiment of sensory knowledge leads us to design developmentally prepared environments from birth to adolescence, indoors and outdoors, and in support of the crucial body-mind connection. Now, all of you have seen this chart before, most of you anyway, and I'm only showing it to remind you of several aspects of adolescent work. One is that we're at the end of the game. And the previous planes, well, almost at the end because there is adulthood, but educationally speaking, we're moving in a synthesis point where the experiences of the first plane and the second plane are vitally critical to how the adolescent is developing in the third plane. Second reason for showing you this is, well, wait a minute. The second reason for showing you this is to emphasize that a lot of our theory base, by necessity, has come from the primary and elementary. That is, the Children's House and the elementary. And this has to be because there is so little literature regarding the adolescent available to us in English. So we have to study hard the previous stages in order to make a theory base that is strictly consistent to the principles and standards of Montessori education. Now, the next point I would like to make is one of the parallel planes. Many people say that the fermentation of the mind, the brain development, the changes in the body, the heated up action of development, growth, and global absorption of the environment has parallels between the first and second plane, and first and third plane. Let's go back. This will help me. So that basically, let's see where this is. Here we are. Basically, what happens in the first plane has a motif, even though it's very different, in the third plane. So there's a relationship here, and that's why I'm very briefly going to look at the first plane, and then look at the third plane, and try to even interpolate in between the second plane before getting to the adolescent. I like to do that in 10 minutes. The first prepared environment. Now, there are two rules for the first plane that really extend to all planes, but they are immediately perceptible in the first plane. One is the love of the adult. And I wanted to take a reading from Louise Kaplan, who spoke to a Montessori audience just a month ago, explaining exactly how powerful this connection is in terms of embodiment and in terms of what a Montessori presentation might include. The first dialogue of the human being has no words. It takes place in the coming together of a newborn's body with the body of his mother, and it includes the times when they move apart. By the way, the name of her book is Oneness and Separateness. When the baby enters a new world, he has language, the gestures and potentials that give him a readiness to reach out, to discover the world, and eventually to create his own knowledge about the world. Thank you, Baiba, too, for that well-developed point. But he needs an interpreter who can make what he is ready to receive sensible and real, because she has a psychological past. The mother has special knowledge of vastness and complexity of the actual new world, and an understanding of the smallness of the world that can be made real to the newborn. The physical and emotional experiences of the mother have endowed her with a certain degree of what we call emotional availability. This is what I want you to keep in mind for the adolescent. And it was talked about all throughout this Congress. Kumar making it one of the basic theses of his idea of education. Emotional availability. That enables her to be a good interpreter for her baby. Emotional availability means being able to modify interpretations according to the baby's changing requirements for closeness to her and distance from her. Now, I choose this picture. It's a strange picture. But I choose this picture to demonstrate the passion of the love of the adult, of the very small child. And it's a passion to me that Montessorians sometimes have compared to adult passions for others. And this passion, I think, is most manifest when this baby leaves the mother. You know the knot that a lover might feel for her other when you're apart, that knot in yourself, a lack of something. Well, I think this is best describing what a young child might feel if the separation from the mother is too extreme relative to development. The other aspect of the two loves is love of the environment. And I use this picture to demonstrate love of the environment, because that child is looking around, don't you think? And that mother is looking straight ahead. And so there is a clear beginning of two aspects to learning: the reciprocation of child and mother, and the reciprocation of child and space. I'm going to show you this in a little action shot. This is from Edison's Day, a video we've made. And I think it represents, there's not much of a soundtrack. This little child is coming into his house, and he's coming towards his father up the stairs. He reaches into the bush, and he finds a snail.
No.
He says, "Snow."
No.
He's showing his father. So there's the environment, love of the environment, and love of the parent. These are usually inseparable, really. It's always the touch back with the parent that allows for the love of the environment to expand. Now, I would like to show you a home picture of the same aspect of what Silvana Montanaro once told me was the side-by-side relationship between mother and child, and how it works to create what I think was called yesterday by Irene as safe harbor. Oops. Edison cooking a pizza. Mother's right by his side. If he makes a mistake, the mother simply shows, just shows, doesn't correct. The Montessori directress presentation to the young child continues the same quality of closeness, the directress taking on the sensorial and emotional availability of an interpreter. The directress is poised for this encounter, prepared for the deep connatural bond that will occur for the moment, and through the magic of her hands and of materials, she issues an invitation to join in, an enticement to concentration. Now, you heard beautiful descriptions of this process. So I'm not going to repeat them, and I'm going to show you a different aspect. This is a group of children from Puebla, and these children, this is Mexico, and Puebla is on the edge of a volcano. And these are the poorest of the poor children, and you can see how basic the furniture is. And I want to allude to the prison video you saw yesterday. That prison video, I think we all knew, was a profound presentation of healing of hurt human beings. And we all know that poverty hurts. And we all know that, in fact, that the directress, I think this was what Rini was saying with the prison film. She can raise her hand and dash to the stage and stop me if I'm wrong. But you look at this directress, and you look at this child, and you look at the side by side, and you look at the joy and concentration in the directress face, the focus on the activity in the child's face, yet there's no hovering about. What I mean by hovering, it's not controlling. It's not a controlling action. It's a side-by-side action. And yet there is something about that space that unifies and takes care of the two of them and elevates their state of being. Now, I quote Gibran because my wife told me not to. But I've heard this poem in relation to Montessori. It goes like this. And what is it to work with love? It is to charge all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit. Work is love made visible. It is not true, is it not true, that a Montessori teacher imparts in every presentation a breath of her own spirit? So often in Montessori, we see the child healed through sensory embodied presentations, filled with color and shape, accompanied by alluring eye contact. Now, I just want to say that this is so characteristic of working with indigenous people and also working with very impoverished people. This encounter embodies the relationship so dynamically that even the most uneducated villagers or school users, parents who send their children to these Montessori schools, understand its beauty. In short, prevailing laws of harmonious existence between the adult and the child under 6 are based on those intrinsic loves, love of the parent and love of the environment, which are sustainable for a lifetime. This is my point. And are realized through the unified vision of an adult and child in a state of focused concentration and flow. Now, I realize that many of you who follow my work already know about flow, but I was urged to take 3 minutes to talk about flow, which is a description of this power of engagement between adult and child. And I'll do it quickly, and I hope not so that you can understand it. It works like this. This theory was devised by a very famous psychologist from the University of Chicago, Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. He's Transylvanian, but he's not related to the Count. I'm glad you got like that. That's what he always says. Okay, if challenges are great and skills are low, you have resultant effects which are apathy, worry, and anxiety. If skills are too high and the challenge is too low, if you're asked to do something that's too easy, you have concomitant uh, negative results, apathy, relaxation, but relaxation that is so laid back nothing happens, and boredom. But if challenges and skills are equal, then something happens like never before. The challenges are engaging, the skills are responding, you have excitement, arousal, you have control, and you have flow. Now, flow means your goals are clear, feedback is immediate, skills match challenges, we talked about that, concentration goes deep, problems are forgotten, you don't think about your problems, control is possible, you're in control of what you're doing, self-consciousness disappears, sense of time is altered, and the experience becomes autotelic, that is, it's being done for its own sake. Now, what I usually do with parents, because flow makes Montessori very clear to parents, it's not a Montessori concept, but it's very clear, is I say, what gives you flow? I say it to the parents. And some of you have done this exercise with me, but maybe you should do it with a stranger so it doesn't repeat itself. But I would like you to take a minute to talk to each other and tell that person next to you what gives you flow, what engages you, what makes you forget time and place. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes. Some people aren't doing it. Okay, time's up. I don't want you to miss lunch. It's a very joyful sound from up here because most people like to talk about what gives them flow. And I turn to the parents, I ask them what gives them flow. We don't have time for that. You could tell me in private if you like. But I ask them what gives them flow, and they tell me everything from arranging furniture to sewing to singing to reading. And then I turn to them after they've discussed their flow, and I say to them, it's a great technique. I said, what if you sent your child to a school which whole purpose is to create flow as much as possible? It makes them want to pay their Montessori tuition. Now, I have a historical picture of a Metabad, a child in 1915 working at a chowki. And I use this picture to introduce the next part of the aspect of love of the environment and flow. Look at the little boy. Look at the axis of concentration and focus. His head's nodded. Nobody can distract him. He's illuminated by the light behind him. He hears the bristling of the leaves, the rustling of the leaves, and he sees light all around him. He's embodying his work. And so I want to bring up another point that's presented here and narrated by a woman named Namal Vaz, who is our national expert on the outdoor environment. She begins to say that it's just like here in this auditorium, that the indoors and outdoors have a vital aspect to flow, that nature counts in the engagement of the adult and the child.
Our children are free to move from indoors to outdoors. Remembering the concept of freedom applies both indoors and outdoors. They're free to move, they're free to talk, they're free to take as long as they wanted to complete their tasks. So long as they're working, the bottom line is you need to concentrate into your work.
Now, this aspect is growing in the United States. There's a great deal of greening of the Montessori programs. There's really an aspect of culture that's greening of buildings, energy conservation. I'm sure you have it, you're way ahead of us here, really, in India. I think the other aspect of Montessori that has come across very strongly from India is the appreciation and use of the out of doors. Namal Vaz is from Sri Lanka, which I know is not India, but it's close to India. And I think her feel for it came from her aunt, Lena Wickramaratne, but it's a very special art of engagement and focused attention. It's also a physical embodiment. In other words, there's triangulation between that child, that adult, and that plant. And it is forming something in both of them. Let's look at the sensory aspects for just a minute that embody the relationship between adult and child in the garden. Again, we will hear Namal Vaz.
The sensory garden is about 1/2 acres, and our idea was to have planters for each of the 5 senses. So we try to get plants that go with the visual, the tactile, the auditory, the olfactory, and the gustatory. We planted carrots, calendulas, strawberries, and last month we harvested bushels of carrots, and our grapes are growing. And the roses are coming out, so we'll have roses for the flower arranging. The work in the garden prepares children for life because I think it teaches them to be patient, because they need to watch. It teaches them to take care, caring, patience, and it also teaches them about living things and ecology.
Now, there's a Montessorian, Louise Chawla, who is now a world-famous researcher for early childhood. And she did most of her work in Norway. She is an American. She now lives in Colorado. And she uses a concept to describe this relationship between adult, child, and nature as a contagious attitude of attentiveness. Now, the best way for me to describe it is to put this child's point of view into your adult point of view. And maybe I'm unique in this way, I don't think so, but have you ever walked in the woods with somebody else that you're attached to, because the child is attached to the adult, and you look at a tree, and the tree all of a sudden has some kind of vividness that's related to an energy between you and the other person and the tree? Have you ever had, is that insanity, or does that sound real? It does sound real. So a contagious attitude of attentiveness has become her life mission to measure that something in the natural world brings a certain kind of attention. Well, any aspect, indoors and outdoors, that it's a joint attitude of attentiveness, a collective attitude of attentiveness. You're all looking at me right now. And I think that this creates a kind of a temporary bond. There's a community here that's created because we're all paying attention to the Montessori idea. So taking this aspect of a child and adult, children use another person's emotional expressions, both children and adults, to regulate their action. They imitate their role models, children and adults, and they apprentice themselves to those who have challenging skills that create flow. Now, I'm going to do very briefly the same thing for the second plane. It's a different kind of joint attentiveness. It relates to being attentive to the universe. This particular picture I commissioned privately. It shows a lineage from great-grandparent to contemporary child of the universe story being told. The universe story is told in every culture. It has different formats. It has different landscapes. But the story of the universe is a universal story, and it's part of human bondage, or bonding, I should say. We're bondage to the fact that we are limited by the universe and also inspired by the universe. But yes, and I'm going to show you a little clip now from Thomas Berry, who was mentioned in Biba's talk. He's a theologian who has made himself a naturalist, and he takes elements of nature. We made this little video clip ourselves, but he takes elements of nature and he shows that nature is a pathway to the universe and that it takes the universe to raise a child.
It takes a universe to make a child, both in outer form and in a spirit. It takes a universe to educate a child. It takes a universe to fulfill the child. And the first obligation of each generation to succeeding generation is to bring these two together so that the child is fulfilled in the universe, while the universe is fulfilled in the child, while the stars sing out in the heavens.
So what we have for the elementary child is the mind's eye, imaginative attentiveness. So that if we put something before an elementary child, he may see it in its physical limits. But if we put something beyond the child, where imagination is very intense, let's quote the famous quote from To Educate the Human Potential. Imaginative vision is quite different from mere perception of an object, where it has no limits. Not only can imagination travel through infinite space, but also through infinite time. We go backwards through the epochs and have the vision of the earth as it was, with the creatures that inhabited it. Our aim is so to touch the child's imagination as to enthuse him to his inmost core. So there's an aspect of the elementary adult that's very different. You have to be not a nothing, as was described yesterday, or with a distance that is a kind of carefully gauged emotion. You have to radiate enthusiasm, and you have to tell a story. You have to be a good storyteller, and you bring the child into
Psychologically, between the ages of 6 to 12, there is a change in personality. Nature has made this a period for the acquisition of culture. Imagination awakens interest, and the stimulation of seeds of interest all correlate to a central idea of ennobling inspiration, a cosmic view. The cosmic view can be presented to the child as a thrilling tale of the earth. Illustrated by fascinating charts and diagrams, the creation of Earth as we know it unfolds before the child's imagination. This is a period when all the sciences should be given. Not only can imagination travel through infinite space, but also through time.
So what we do, instead of having a plant in front of us, or simply a material in front of us, the most powerful aspect of the elementary child's engagement with an adult is through stories that take him beyond the immediate space. And what I do with parents to illustrate this is I have everyone, I want you to do this, close your eyes and imagine particles moving through this auditorium and moving out of the auditorium into the sky, throughout India, throughout Asia, throughout the world, throughout the universe. Now, open your eyes. An elementary child can do that 10 times better than you can. Now, I would like to say that if we look at the stories of the universe, the story of the coming of humans, it's out of order, the coming of life, the coming of humans, the story of the universe, I'll read it from the center out. the story of the universe, the coming of life, the coming of humans, the fundamental needs of human beings. If you look at this whole grandiose presentation, this stops action in an elementary classroom. As it's built, it's embodied by the story. It's embodied by the physical places, the charts, the timelines. It's physically made real. And so that, in effect, all the disciplines that we study that emanate from the stories, all the disciplines, the story of, let's say, plants and animals on Earth, create biology, the story of the primal ocean creates chemistry. All of the disciplines are embedded, that is, embodied by the story. So biology, chemistry, geology, geography, astronomy, physics, algebra, geometry, arithmetic, everything is embodied. And it's the adult that will, in fact, turn the attention to the imagination to create a image and a feeling of enthusiasm that draws the elementary child into flow. I'm moving ahead because I don't want to keep you too long. So if I were to bring in the aspect of nature as a pathway to the universe, let me another quote from Maria Montessori on the tree and the power of the tree to evoke the sense of interconnectedness, to embody interdependency.
There is no description, no image in any book that is capable of replacing the sight of trees and all the life to be found around them in a forest. Something emanates from those trees which speaks to the soul, something no book is capable of giving. The wood reveals that it is not only the trees that exist, but a whole interrelated collection of lives.
So the unity of vision comes from two places: the natural world as a whole interdependent experience, and from the understanding of that natural world to the universe and its own sense of destiny and order. The teacher has to imbue the wonder. This is a very famous Montessori quote in red. Would that the teacher allow herself to be imbued by the grandeur of this whole and to be able to transmit to the child. It's not only the classification of a few details that must be the point of departure, but the classification of the whole. Now, if we take the cosmos and we move to the adolescent stage, we introduce another whole, and this is the whole of the farm. So let's transform this conceptual, imaginative unity into a micro unity. We're dealing with the macro for the elementary imagination, the micro for the adolescent, and we are now transported to the farm school that I've started with a team of people, and a concept that we've used to say, yes, you need a farm, but you can go any place with this idea of creating an adolescent community on the land. And I want to say that 98% of our 400 adolescent programs in the United States are in the city or in suburbs. 2% are farms. But they are practicing the same principles, which, as I'm going to do with you, are illustrated by the farm. These are city places that are also natural places. So back to the poet. I'm so glad poetry has been justified by the previous lecture. And not my wife. You work that you may keep pace with the earth. So there's work on the land. So you may work that you may keep pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. For to be idle is to become a stranger unto the seasons, and to step out of life's procession that marches in majesty and proud submission towards the infinite. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are in truth loving life. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret. So we have our occupations on the land, labor on the land. And I take you now to a farm school that I was involved with in Mexico To meet the farm manager proudly talk about his children's harvest, which not only alludes to the agricultural aspects, but also to the Maya aspects, because corn, within the context of the Maya civilization, is a whole cultural phenomenon that takes you to the divine.
This is the corn harvest season, and we have a corn festival, the 28th, September 28th. So we are taking this corn to the school for the festival. So each family of the school is going to have part of the corn and make some dishes like traditional Mexican food with corn, with our corn. Yeah, the harvest is the most exciting part of the process. So they like to harvest. It's what they are expecting to do. So yeah, I think they love to harvest the corn.
What he just said basically was how useful the corn is for the school community and how much they like the harvest. These are 12 to 15-year-olds. Now, we have all kinds of occupation, and the adult plays a role. The adult becomes almost invisible after the adolescent, learns the skill. So here you don't see the adults in many of the occupations. There's an adult in the right-hand lower corner. This is the food preservation. The cook is the teacher here. These are specialists who know how to work with their hands usually. Hands entice, just as in the children's house. And the adolescents are in flow because they are doing big work, doing new challenges. I always joke about this child on your right, who's sawing, that he's so in flow that he may be sawing himself off the roof. And this was my specialty, the archaeology occupation. We found almost 400 shards on a dump on the farm. And again, I was not really a critical player as people began to discover the shards, only to tell them whether the chard had been discovered, a like chard had been discovered before and could be used. But really, the child and nature and the operations of the farm and the relevance of history and the farm, relevance of science and the farm take over by themselves. So the adult's role becomes diminished, but it's still critical. And the adolescent, because if the adult is a true and authentic expert and is interested in the adolescent, more so the latter than the former, you have to have an interested adult in the adolescent. If they are truly interested and they know something, it's a winning game between adult and adolescent. The most amazing love of competence and feeling of loyalty to the specialist comes forward. So look at the myriad of structures that create embodied relationships with adult. This is a bioshelter. This is energy supplied by a manure, compost interior, and also energy supplied by blowdown from the woods. So it's renewable energy, and of course there's the greenhouse itself. And here's our beginning spring startups. And this is taking lettuce for lunch. This is aquaponics. But look, the pride, independence, the beauty of the faces involved with all of the occupations. And of course, the adult, as shown by this man in the right-hand corner, the adult still helps. But the adult is passing on a manual skill, a physical skill to a child. This is the practical life at its best. And I want you to see, again, there's an element of danger, there's an element of challenge, and considerable flow. Let me show you what I mean. Mexico. Using a ginger root to create smoke. you recognize the music. Did you know who was the adult in that picture? There was an adult in that picture, but the collaboration's so even that you hardly can differentiate. And I might say the other amazing thing about the farm-related adult-adolescent relationship and its harmony is that you make something. You make a bottle of honey. You make a beautiful frame for a picture in the wood shop. You save your pond from algae infestation or muskrats. It's a great kind of relationship because it's so useful for a single limited operation, a micro community we call the farm. So here you see the sugar bush operation. The adult is in the top left-hand picture, and they're picking out maple trees for tap. They're going to make a maple syrup. Here's the pond water occupation that I spoke about, where muskrats are being dispersed and microinvertebrates are being looked at. And the pond creeks have sciences around them, waste treatment plant studies, water quality. The physical embodiment of the adult expert and the child immediately takes the discipline immediately into real physicalized study. The study is limited by the actual work on the pond. So same with bridge building, that's physics. That has to do with compression and tension. It has to do with how bridges stand up. It has to do with the degree of fatigue that can be measured in a bridge. The adult is there, but the children take over. The adult steps aside, the work gets done, and the lesson is learned as necessary knowledge to get the work done. Back to the sugar bush operation, that's another aspect about occupations. They're back and forth, back and forth. It's like the hum of activity that's described in the children's house. It's here too. Everyone sees who's on the pig occupation. Everyone sees who's on the cow occupation. Everyone sees who's the adult that's working with the sugaring. And the students take over. They embody the relationship to each other. It's social. There's very little conflict on the farm, if any. The lessons then follow. Now I wanted to show you another kind of occupation. This is from Wajah Wajah High School, an Aboriginal high school in Australia. And I want to show this. This was presented by one of our class people, one of our Montessori orientation students this past summer. And I want to give you an idea of what happens to occupations when students work either as Indigenous people or work with Indigenous people. So I'm going to show you, this is the town elder that shows the skill, and the porcupine, I can't say I know about this, so I'm just going to, there is an Aboriginal attendee at this conference who could explain it later maybe. But the porcupine is dequilled, skinned, and the students learn to do this, the adolescents learn to do it because this is how they live. Baked and served on some kind of bread. Now, I also want to show you in Mexico, these are suburban children from Cuernavaca that are going to work at a neighbor indigenous village, and they're going fence building for the medicine man there in order to protect his valuable healing plant. You won't probably understand the student who's speaking, but you might know that they are speaking English, and this is part of the expectation of every Mexican Montessori student to be fluent in English by 15. Whoops.
We're trying to make a wall around the shaman's garden.
They're doing the art of fence making.
And so we're doing the chinamik of the garden.
It's an old craft.
So that it can protect the garden and the plants from the dogs and the kids. This is a technique from here that's called chinami, and it works for a lot of the houses here and a lot of the families. So we're gonna try to use this technique to save the plants in the garden.
These plants doesn't grow here. That's why we're trying to save them, because
what's happening here, they have a very real role of protecting the plant and use an old craft to make the fences. It's the same craft that's been there for several thousand years, and it has a special name that I don't know. All right, now what I would like to say, we're close to the end, and I would like to say that an adolescent's work is not about observing work, it's about doing real work. It's not about tokenistic work like watering plants at the hospital. It's about total community work. So it entails real responsibilities and real shared decision-making with the adult. That's a big difference from the elementary or the practical life. Well, there's responsibility at the practical life level with the Children's House, but this affects a world out there that's beyond the community or within the community and aimed at production and exchange. So, how do the students embody the farm? Let's take a look at their photographs. This is a presentation in silence. These are students that have taken pictures of their farm and have created their own portfolios. These are children ages 12 to 15. I mean, that's a cow. That's a horse. I mean, it's the essence of a cow and a horse. There's something more than what you see there. And that's because it's in the body and soul of the person who took it. Inside beauty. The little community. Now I'm just going to speak a little bit about the high school because I do not want to go over time. And the high school takes the concept of occupations you've just seen and the sense of the little community, and we take it into the city. It doesn't involve selling farm products. It does involve entrepreneurial work. And I can only tell you that the business side of the farm and the business side of the city are about the only thing that they have in common as a unifying force. Business means that you're actually selling what you raise to other people, raise or have made to other buyers other than your own community. So the microeconomy has a very powerful effect on adult-adolescent relationships. The microeconomy means that you have a cash relationship with another adult. This is very powerful. As you all know, adolescents love environment, they love the adult, and they love money. So what comes out of this moral responsibility is what comes out of this kind of relationship is real moral responsibility. And I'm not going to have the students talk about that now because we're out of time. Let's go to the city and let's look at a larger community. Let's take the farm and the microeconomy, the little community, and put it into 1 square mile called University Circle, where there's 41 cultural institutions. So this is what it looks like. We have the University, the Historical Society, the hospitals, the Natural History Museum. They're all in one space, the School of Medicine, the Botanical Gardens, Cleveland Museum of Art, and so forth. And this is the space they're in. Our campus is, let's see where this is. Whoop. Uh-oh, I hit the power button. Could go off. That's our high school. And these are all the cultural institutions that you saw. And everything's in walking distance. And we have contracts with each of those institutions so that the specialists in those institutions are our adjunct faculty. We still have our own faculty. This is our campus in the wintertime. This is what it looks like now. Big contrast. I want to go home. And I like winter. And here are some of the institutions. This is a montage of the institutions. These are the experts. Look at them. Enthusiastic, loaded with expertise. Physical anthropology, very popular. Wildlife, they all want to go back to the farm. So the next best thing is wildlife at the Natural History. The curator and head of invertebrate zoology is an entomologist. That means an expert in insects and does crime study. So what I just want to say is that the exposure to real people and real expertise in an urban environment is thrilling to high school adolescents, and each of them involve relationships that are quite different. And this chart you see is a chart we don't show at all, but it is a chart where every adolescent has a discussion with an advisor in the high school as to what they want to do for their creativity, for their bike shop, for their action, their community action, and for service in relation to these institutions. Look at their prepared environments. They're the prepared environments of experts, coordinated by our core staff, but here, for instance, is a simulated rainforest. No, I'm sorry, that's the Madagascar desert. Looks pretty plush to me. This is a rainforest. This is our Historical Society, 9 libraries in the University Circle, all for each of the institutions, especially the museums, art studios. So what is this about? This is embodiment again. This is the embodiment of the specialty. This is working in space. This is working within a 1 mile walking distance where the finite nature creates a stronger community, not only between the adolescent and adolescent, not only between his teacher at the high school, but also with all the little families that are embodied by those institutions. So what is it? How does this work? How do they learn their disciplines? Very simple. We have a place represented by these circles. We have a self, that is the adolescent. We have the school, that's the limitation of our campus. We have all the local institutions within walking distance. Community jumps to global very easily because once they experience community within themselves and within the local community, they can jump to global because the same principles of contributions and from different countries is very similar to contributions from different institutions. The universe always touches us. And the disciplines are then, you can't see these, this is history and geography, economics and environmental studies. These are all kinds of relationships that occur on the land, in the space, in the urban setting, that help unify each other in relation to the student. In other words, they're embodied. Very personal, very deep, very individual. Now, what I want to say, what are the outcomes? Very global. Sustainability, belief systems, people, places, impact, the human condition, mathematical view of the world, economic overview, learning from the past. It's all there. It's there in University Circle. It's there in the world. It's all in common. It becomes a part of their physical and mental life. in a way that shows. And that's what I want to do next. As I want to introduce you to Soraya, I hope you can hear her. I want you to see how she looks at being 18 years old. She was at the farm school. She lives in Australia. We interviewed her about what it means to be an adult and see what she embodies. And raise your hand if you can't make it out.
I turned 18 in November, and technically I'm an adult. But to me, that's not what defines being an adult. I think when I turned 18 on the day beforehand, I was kind of fearful of becoming 18. I was like, wow, you know, everyone else is really looking forward to becoming 18, but I'm kind of like, do I want to take that step? And then all of a sudden I turned 18 and I was like, this feels right, you know, I'm ready to take on that responsibility. I feel within me a responsibility, and yes, I've grown up feeling that same responsibility as well, that responsibility to care for others around me, but now I really feel like I have the strength to take it on, to act on that. Becoming an adult, I think for me is kind of, to explain it, I think it's more like a perspective on things and a way of looking at things and understanding that you really, understanding your place among things is for me becoming an adult. My place among things isn't really something that's nameable. I just know that it's where I am, and it feels right to me where I am at the moment. And it feels right to me to be doing the things that I'm doing. And there has been times before I may have been doing the same things, but it hasn't felt right. But right now, it feels right. It feels pure. And I think that is where I belong. That's understanding my way. I've been taught, I've learned, I've discovered to listen to myself.
Could you hear it pretty well? Isn't she embodying everything we've talked about along the series of prepared environments? Now, I also want you, some of you have seen this already, but he's a symbol to me, Geronimo from Mexico. This is the last slide. He represents the embodiment of another aspect of Montessori education, which is social reform. Hear it from Geronimo.
It's not enough to be on a classroom and that someone is telling you, oh, these are the problems of the world, there are many problems of the world, and someone to be telling you and telling you that the world is all corrupted and it's all a problem. It's not enough. We have to face the real problems of the world. We have to go to the communities and learn what is happening, why this is happening, to learn the history of those towns, those places, and know why this is happening, because this is not something magical that suddenly started to happen. This is something with a very specific reason that has to be with the story. So that's why it's very important going to Cuentepec, because we are facing to the real problems of the world, and we are learning how to fight against them and how to change our reality.
It's not theory, is it? It's real. These are real children growing up Montessori. All I can say, we're at the beginning of the 15 to 18 work. There's 15 high schools in the United States, maybe one or two that are really doing serious Montessori work, maybe 3. But the signs are there. They're visible signs. And so I would like to conclude with this paragraph of my own, which was written for this event. Authentic encounters of young people with adults and with each other will result in 1, a living morality that comes only from authentic encounters with adults and peers. A calling in life, something comes out of them, their great work. A deeply felt conviction about who you are as a person of conscience. The learning is about relationships, respect, compassion, creative cooperation, and a unified vision of co-workers and goals. Today's Montessori education, tomorrow's single peaceful world nation, a Montessori utopian dream embodied in the Montessori adult. Work, our work, is love made visible. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. Rukmini has a couple of announcements to make, and then I have a couple, so please bear with me. We'll not interrupt your lunchtime too much.
Time-honored tradition of keeping you back here. I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Michaela Verdinelli. She's a counselor in the municipality of Chiaravalle, the birthplace of Dr. Maria Montessori, and she's worked extensively in the area of children's rights. She's got a message for us from the town of Chiaravalle. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to give my regards to all the dignitaries and delegates. In this long hair crossing, I had a lot of time to think over. From a height of 10,000 meters, the heart doesn't exist anymore. It's not a common feeling, it's a different feeling, maybe a repeatable. Every time that I have this feeling, it's like a discovery to myself. I was astonished as a child to know and to realize that I'm hanging on the air as a bird. While then I discovering the no hurt, the flight, to be hung. I started to feel the movement through this extraordinary place, India. And I have told myself that it's an amazing adventure that is possible thanks to Maria Montessori, with her pedagogic thinking and her choice of life. I ideally link 2 points far from each other. One point is here, and the other in Chiaravalle, a little town, the house where Maria Montessori was born, her brick house, the square, and the Italian people. 2 different points in space that now, today, they touch each other. Not only an important idea or project as an international commitment to education, but with a presence of mind, with a presence of physical. We see each other, we can hear each other, we can express ourselves. Sensory perception, one of what Montessori would like. So when I arrived here in Chennai, I had strongly this perception. Perception that means an holistic vision of quality life, where words as peace, progress, freedom, social emancipation, they are all in the same concept and idea. Child as a father of man, child as a father of humanity, concept where Montessori started his hard work. To be holistic is a place where it's possible to arrive. Today, for a lot of different cultures, but I don't want to talk about us Eurocentric, where did a lot of mistakes. The history is history. Our Montessori, sorry for the familiarity, belongs to the world from the beginning. It's not strange that her thought, her action, her method are immediately convincing because they are working, because they are proved to be right in practice, in a pedagogical action, in education value. I would like to be practical and don't want to simplify the problems, but I would like to start from some Montessori thought she laid down, beginning her research with the problem of school, a school for all people, and in particular a school for poor people. And then she say about a teacher-educator, a person that has the rule to show need for all, starting from dissatisfaction needs of poor people. Now we still have the same problems. So I would like to underline here today an element, a kind of view, of point of view that I believe that we can never neglect. This point of view is freedom system, freedom regime. It means child has all the conditions to express himself. I underline this concept as a person that works in a public administration, as a counselor. I make a commitment during this year to be able to create positive and practical conditions in order that the thought and the action of Montessori could be a real project as a political, technical, pedagogical, education line. We make constant an effort in our political and administrative action. We want to transform Montessori pedagogical advices in a real action. What we do, what we are doing. We have a very active school, Casa dei Bambini, primary school, 3 sections of creche, from 3 months to 3 years. This is our offer to our territory. It's a nice offer that confirms a good Montessori method, that is constantly supplied with a cultural research, with professional course and professional development, and the national and international conference with association and corporation. House of Maria Montessori is a center rich with documents and books, but also a place where a lot of teachers and students come to visit, as a tourism, as a path to the origin. They are symbolic, but they are full of passion for Montessori, a kind of passion that crosses all regions and the national borders. A project in Chiaravalle based on La Casa dei Bambini and a constant research. We choose to control constantly our educational activity with an external advisor. They represent for our teachers a kind of stimulation to improve research, as it's still ongoing. Research is based on Montessori teaching and a regular and positive contact with child, with everyday work. It's not easy. We cope with indifference and a limited knowledge of a Montessori method, and then this behavior can be an obstacle for our project, our improvement. Few teachers didn't know from the beginning in a deep way the value of a Montessori method, in particular the holistic value, the most related to the child. We would like to build a path where Montessori method can be in relation with a vision of education open and free. This means to improve training for all teachers. At Chiaravalle we are training with professional people, teachers for our universal education, education that begins from Montessori, open to the news, a kind of scientific pedagogy, as Montessori would like to say. This project needs a finance from local administration, corporation. We say thanks to sponsors as Regione Marche e Provincia di Ancona and private sponsors. Finance investment is related with investment in human resource. Comune di Chiaravalle believes strongly in this project. It's not easy, this is consciousness. But if we are here to talk about the work for a girl that was born in 1817, and she was born in a little town, in a little Italian region, then I believe that this can be a sign of optimism for the future, for new generation, because freedom starts at the beginning of life, doesn't start during adult age. I would like to finish with a little poem where come from this book is Favolando, and his book where there are stories written by children and published by a Fondazione Chiaravalle Montessori. In particular, this poem comes from Reform School from Children. I'm going to read in Italian. Cielo, terra, sole, luna, di voi oggi son digiuna. Vita, amore, pace, colore, ti coltivo nel mio cuore. Mi dimeno, mi dispero, ma di sperare non faccio a meno. Arriverà, lo so, succederà. Quando Dio lo vorrà, ti riavrò, lo so, sospirata libertà. E lo giuro, lo prometto, vita mia, d'ora in poi di te avrò un gran rispetto. Happy New Year to everybody and thanks you a lot.
I'd just like to say that we've had a request here from Larry Ditterburner, a trainee of the 38th Montessori course and AMI course held in Ahmedabad in 73-74. He would like to ask any of you teachers who have people from that time or any others from IMTC as well, whether you could meet in your free time today during lunch. I think that Larry would have liked to have met in the previous break, but this announcement didn't get made till now. So over lunch, if you could meet Larry, any of you from the 70s who would like to meet and catch up and exchange notes, you can meet near the AMI counter as soon as lunch is being served. We also have a couple of names whom we'd like to see in the office, because we have I think still the administrative department of the Congress would like to meet with you. Alyssa Schwartz, Christian Salvan Moser, Asia Sachwani, Louise Livingston, Jessica Scrimes, Anita Liedman, Mary Caroline Parker, Kavita Rode, Rajesh Avasti, Mono Sumro, and Rachna Kodisia. I think there are small matters to settle at the Congress office if you could meet us over lunch. Thank you.
I am sorry. This must now seem like the straw that broke the camel's back. I do hope you survive. Just the last little bit. Another request. The AMI 6 to 12 diploma holders who are here with us from Australia and other parts of the world would like to meet with the newly graduated AMI 6 to 12 diploma holders from India and have requested that we announce so that you all can meet. If you would all meet during the tea break after lunch and after the breakout sessions during the tea break and collect near the banyan tree, there will be volunteers waiting to lead you there to a nearby cottage where you can sit and chat and exchange ideas. Now to just remind you about all the breakout sessions so that you know exactly what's happening this afternoon. You have Montessori and the Child, the elementary 6 to 12, which is being led by Jean Miller. You have J. Krishnamurthy's Ideas on Education, and the second part of how it's applied in rural education, which is being led by Dr. Radhika Hersberger. You have Dance as Sadhana with Leela Sampson. You have activity-based learning by a panel of people involved in that education. And you have How to be an AMI trainer, where you meet with a panel of AMI trainers. Those are the various cottages that have sessions. Again, the volunteers know exactly where these are, so if you ask them, they'll point you in the right direction. The daily sessions, which happen every day, just to remind you, Krida, games that you can play and try out. Art as Sadhana, where you can try weaving or painting or block printing. Kolam, to try Rangoli. A tree walk, Tulen, and the Montessori Museum. Please avail of this opportunity to visit all these sessions. One last reminder, the various stalls will be closing at 4 o'clock and some of them would like to close a little earlier. So if you would remember to go and see the stall while you still have time. To remind you again that Indian delegates, this is your final chance to avail of the introductory offer to AMI membership. Thank you.